Last night, we set the clocks back 1 hour, but Ankalaev, being the light heavyweight champion of the world, set the sport back 10 years. The question is, I knew you were going to love that intro. The question is, does the UFC have a superstar problem? Their biggest cash cow just lost his belt.
Wow.
And we gave it to the most boring fighter on the roster. Josh, what do you think of that intro? And do you agree the UFC has a superstar problem?
Okay. The intro was freaking awesome. Fantastic. Fantastic. Totally caught me off guard. If it wasn't hot coffee, I probably would have spit it out. But last night was eye-opening, I think, for a lot of people. But like when I filmed my show last night, which dropped this morning with Big John, we really just talked about a lot of strategic moves last night for all fighters, not just the main event, also for Justin Gaethje, also for Fiziev, also for like Bahamondes, and like fighters down the list felt like they were just fighting very strategically. You know, Lemos and Lucindo, like they just had strategies for the way that they wanted to approach the fight, and they didn't want to veer away from that. And what you saw last night was a typical case of a top-level world-class striker in Alex Pereira having to fight a really good striker, but also someone who maybe doesn't have the best wrestling, but has wrestling. And it slows everything down. And I can't say it enough. This sport was designed and built off of mixed martial arts. And if you can't be a true mixed martial artist, it's very hard to do what Alex has been doing. And so I know that he has had some fights along the way that they have really kind of built him up on. But last night, to me, it didn't deter me at all from believing in him at all. What it did was it opened my eyes to the fact that he's got takedown defense. He is physically a very big guy. I mean, you saw when I saw him and Ankalaev face to face, I was like, man, Ankalaev looked like a weight class lower. You know, not fully, but like you could tell there's physical size, height, shoulder frames, the thickness of the body. But just that sheer thought of being taken down, or that the idea of him getting in deep on the legs, he stopped throwing punches. And he was hesitant to really kind of throw hard kicks also. So there was a caveat of to like what he was doing. He just couldn't get off. And I said this last week on one of our shows. The fact that he is that Ankalaev is left-handed, it takes away his left hook. His best weapon. Everything is off of that. So if you don't have a good right hand, it takes away the left hook. It's tough. I gotta be honest, it gives me flashbacks of Oscar De La Hoya. Certain guys, like Oscar couldn't fight certain guys because he didn't have a fucking right hand. All he had was a left hook. So when he fought left-handed fighters, he got stumped. It was hard for him to fight. And it's very much what we saw last night. When he fought left-handed fighter, defensively he was sound, and also too just was faster. He was also faster than than Pereira. So there was a lot of things that went into it. But I want everyone to understand that it is so difficult to fight somebody knowing that they have better wrestling than you and you're the better striker. And that if the fight got taken out of the ground, that you may not get up. I saw the old clips of him and Jan took him down and controlled him, got his back. He never got back up. I was like, okay, yeah. Like he had a lot to fear. He had a lot to fear if he got taken down. So that's what we saw last night, was a hesitant fighter with a world-class striking, fighting a southpaw that negated his number one weapon, which was his left hook.
Yeah, and it's a tricky situation because Alex Pereira is the UFC's biggest star, especially right now. Conor McGregor doesn't exist. He'll never fight again. John Jones isn't active enough to actually move the needle more than once every couple of years.
Can I say this about the John Jones conversation?
Yeah.
If John Jones retired today, no one would care.
Yeah, he doesn't fight often enough for people to care.
No one would care. He was on a 3-year hiatus, or almost 4 years, or whatever it was, comes back, fights, a striker, wins the title, good on him, and then fights a 41-year-old or whatever, and don't get me wrong, Stipe deserves all the respect he deserves.
Yeah, but he looked old. Like he looked his age, yeah.
But the thing is, if he retired now and freed up that division, no one would talk about it anymore. No one would say anything. No one would say anything.
I completely agree.
The star power in John Jones is completely gone.
And that's a problem that UFC, I feel like, is going to have in the next couple of years. Obviously, the UFC, there's always ebbs and flows. They manage to build superstars. They just pop up out of nowhere. Alex Pereira popped up out of nowhere. This guy's career's existed for 3 years. He went from nothing to the biggest star that they have. The problem is he is the biggest star that they have. The other handful of stars that they have are aging out. So it was really coming down to Alex to carry this torch, to try to build young fighters on the same card as him. That's why Mauricio Ruffy was on this card. Let's showcase that talent with Alex at the top. The problem is Alex just lost in probably worst case scenario for the UFC. You could see Dana White's face when he saw that scorecard. That guy was pissed. And not because it was a bad decision. I don't think that was a bad decision. That looked like the right decision to me.
Oh, it
was because...
Oh, it did?
I thought that was the right decision.
Okay.
Alex was backing up the whole time with like a calf kick, and that's it.
What scorecard did you look at? Which scorecard did you agree with? The 4-1 or the 3-2?
4-1. I thought it was 4-1. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And you and I were sitting here, and I was talking. I need Alex to win. Ankalaev is going to be the worst. Alex. That just felt 4-1. Honestly, if you said 5-0, I wouldn't even scream about it. Alex backed up, and maybe I give too much credit to moving forward, but Alex backed up the entire time. There was no damage other than the only damage is on the Ankalaev side, and having a red calf, he wasn't limping. Like, how does that matter? Okay, now this whole topic, we're going to retitle this video to, was that a bad decision?
No, star power. But look, I don't think it's, I had it 3-2 Alex.
You thought it was 2-2 going into the fifth?
Yes, I thought it was 2-2 going in.
Really?
And I give it to Alex. Look, but here, the reason being is that just because you walk and make me go backwards doesn't mean shit. You've got to actually throw and land as well. And in some of those exchanges against the fence, out of the break, Alex was landing the shots. And in the clinch, there was nothing being done. Nothing. If they would have broke him sooner, I'd have been like, okay. I mean, this is where I go back to this half-point scoring system. I'm like, these are the rounds in the fights. In a title fight, you really are looking for this to happen. Those are the things that you want, that half-point scoring system. It was such a close fight. And if it went 3-2 Alex, which is to me, which is what it did, I'm fine with it. But in no way was it a ripoff. I saw everyone going on like it was a ripoff. Alex, no, Alex, if he lost, he lost.
It was definitely too close to call robbery in either direction. For sure. It was a close fight. Not enough happened. It was a boring fight for a reason.
Exactly. I had it 2-2 going into the fifth. And I think on the judges' cards, Alex won the fifth round on all of them, I think is what I saw. So bottom line.
He definitely had a good fifth round. He landed that big head kick. Yeah. The hesitation was the problem. He lands that big head kick. Spit goes flying. Sweat goes flying. For the first time in the entire fight, Ankalaev's moving backwards instead of forward, and Alex just let it happen, where that was his big opportunity.
Well, the whole first round, Alex pushed him backwards, and that's the round that he won. And then I had him win in the third, and I had him win in the fifth. So it was 2-2 going into the fifth, at least on my scorecard.
No, and that's not unique position. That's because Jacob, who my co-host here, he was over. He had it 2-2 going into the fifth as well. And I may have just had higher expectations, and I do probably give too much credit to moving backwards.
Maybe but Jacob and I need to do a show since we agree better.
You guys are both very immature. No,
oh wow!
No, actually,
wow.
What's funny is he was
we already saw he can't fight. So
we did I did like that little bum up. We did our show on Tuesday, and he was like, maybe you and Josh could talk about this. I'm like, you sound like a jealous woman right now.
Wow, I take it back. Salty as fuck.
I think the biggest issue with last night was not how you scored it, because honestly, controversy is great for the UFC. The UFC is in the controversy game. You get a drag 'em out war with a bad decision or a weird decision, you run the rematch back, and everybody's foaming at the mouth. This was too much inactivity. It wasn't that crazy. The only time the fight almost got finished was on the Ankalaev side, and that's the way the decision went. But I do think the UFC is going to have a superstar problem, because the Alex Pereira loss was the worst possible way he could have lost this fight. He didn't look exciting. He was backing up. He didn't have the big moments, and the most boring guy in the division won that fight. Dana White's talking about rematch. I don't think a rematch goes any differently. If Alex was terrified of the wrestling, maybe in the rematch, Alex would be in a position where, hey, I know my takedown defense works. I defended all 12 takedowns last time. Now I can let my hands go. I'm not sure, but the UFC does need to figure out who is going to be our cash cow. You have a couple people that could be the next superstar. And Alex is also 37 years old. He's not young by any means. Connor's gone. He doesn't matter. Jon Jones, as you mentioned, basically gone. And if he is gone, it doesn't really matter much when you fight one time every 3 years. You have Ilya and Islam could be the next big thing, but they're probably fighting each other. So one of them is going to lose, and then there goes that star power. Israel Adesanya's done. Francis Ngannou's not in the UFC anymore, and I don't think Tom Aspinall is going to move the needle. So right now what we have is a Dustin Poirier who is on his retirement fight. A Paddy Pimblett who they're trying to push, who will always be pretty popular, but never be a giant headliner, sell a huge pay-per-view. Mm-hmm. You have a Mauricio Ruffy who they're trying to build up, but way too early in his career. He could definitely be a big deal, but he doesn't speak any English. And the only superstar I could think of that didn't speak English.
Alex got built up just fine. Don't speak a fucking lick of English.
And I was going to say, the only superstars I could think of that didn't speak English that got that big were Alex and Anderson Silva. It took Anderson Silva like 4 years to be a big deal. Alex did it quickly, but he had the Izzy plotline behind him.
Yeah, maybe you forgot about this small guy named Fedor Emelianenko.
He wasn't a UFC superstar, though.
He's a fucking superstar. Bigger than all these other guys. Really,
no way, dude. No way. You're
absolutely.
No way, dude. No way.
Fedor was a bigger star
in Japan.
No, bigger than John Jones.
Dude, no. This show is called Bad Takes, and there's no way.
I'm telling you, man.
I'm gonna put up a poll.
Have you never been like around like any fights whatsoever, events with Fedor there? It's like
I don't go to Japan very often.
It's like a herd of dogs, just people following him around. Listen,
overseas,
I get it. You never followed the UFC. You only watched the UFC. You never watched
you pulled that card. It took 10 shows to pull that card.
Straight casuals. That is what I expected to get from Angelo. This is what I expected. Look. There's guys out there that have been full on celebrities and stars. They don't speak English, but I get it. I understand what you're saying. The UFC, what they do better than anybody, boxing, they can make something out of that. They can do it. You know, I mean, let's be honest. I love Ronda Rousey. Amazing. Like when Strikeforce to the UFC. But do you guys remember the talking points of she could probably fight a pro boxer, and she could probably spar with Floyd Mayweather? No, we saw that was not true.
She got lit up by Holly Holm.
But for moments there, though, people were talking that way. They were talking that as if she could stand with a pro boxer. It's just not true. But then they had people thinking that. They had people believing it because she was so dominant in jiu-jitsu and arm bars and having some success on the feet. I think didn't she knock out Betch Correia? I think she knocked her out.
Yeah, she
something like that. So
knee to the body, I think it was.
Yeah, something along those lines. But anyways, they have ways of getting people to talk. And when John is gone, I look at too. This is how I look at the UFC. I look at it as if it's like a salary cap. When John Jones is gone and they know they don't have to allocate $5 million, $8 million, $9 million for him, and I can spend $5-8 million on somebody that is coming up, a Ruffy or Bahalo or Jean Silva or somebody that is.
You just listed everybody at Fight Nerds.
Yeah, I know I did. But look, I really enjoyed that fight last night with that young kid Marshall and Santos. Great fight. Yeah. Great fight, right? But that was the second fight on the card. 2 young fighters. Great fight. And I talked about how nice it was to see them come out and have a strategy of how they thought they were going to get it done. They were composed under the bright lights, big fight night on a pay-per-view. I mean, it's just amazing. I thought, there was good fights throughout this night. You got Ruffy, obviously. Lucindo, they had high expectations for her. Bahamondes too. I mean, the win over Turner. These are all stars that they can build. And look, with an extra $10 million or 15 or whatever they're saving on John Jones and whoever else. Look, Alex has got another 2 years. He's probably going to be gone after that.
Yeah, 1.5 2 years, something like that. Yep.
I mean, luckily for him, he's in one of the weakest weight classes in the sport, and so he could probably stick around a little bit longer. You may get him into 40, 41. But I also got to be very honest about this situation. The Izzy fight showed that he can take a shot, but can he take a big shot? And we chalked it up to he dehydrated himself quite a bit, and this. But we saw last night too, he got rocked from a shot that Uncle Live put on him.
As good as he is offensively, he's not very defensively sound.
No, he's not. He is in terms of range, and he is in terms of he rolls with the punches really well. He doesn't look like it because his hands are so far out. They're out in front of his face, and that generally leads to you getting knocked out. But man, he's a world-class striker. He just finds, he can roll with the punches and he can deliver big shots and knock out punches back. But the UFC, to get back on your point, do they have a star problem? I do believe right now they have a star problem, but it's not so big. You've got, Pereira still, he's not gone. That's what makes us not boxing, is that he's still around. He's still a star. He's still going to sell pay-per-views. If they do the rematch, which I don't think they should right away, I think they should have him fight Yuri. Have Ankalaev fight Yuri. See what happens. Maybe Yuri wins. Maybe. And if he beats him, now you've just got rid of that problem. Now you're like, hey, you lost. You had the title for one fight.
Never have to see you again.
Go fight 10 more times and then come back. And, that's kind of UFC. I could see them being, go fight Jan again. You should have lost that fight. Fight Jan, and then, maybe fight Yuri in a rematch after, but whatever. They'll find ways to pump money into fighters and make a star out of them. Like you said, Ilya, Islam, if he goes up, I mean, that builds it. If Bilal goes up, there's more talking points. If one of those guys wins by going up, you've got an instant star. Islam's already a star, but like you have an instant star. Like now he's a 170-pound champ and he's already talking about 85.
Yeah.
He's talking about skipping 70 and going right to 85 because he wants to fight Drickus. And Dana kind of trying to shut that down right away. That's too big. Let him do it, man. If he wants to do it, let him do it.
It is going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. I agree with you not having, because you can salvage excellent point, Joshua. When you said it's not boxing, you can lose a fight and people don't abandon ship. I completely agree with that. And I also agree you should not do the rematch, because if you do the rematch and he loses, he's lost twice in a row. Now he's even older. Mm-hmm. I completely agree. Do not do that rematch. Give him a fight that he can definitely win. You can give Ulberg to Ankalaev, or to your point, give Yuri to Ankalaev, because Yuri will not just be frozen by the idea of wrestling. He's going to move forward and do what the hell he does, and you never know. And then Ankalaev, hopefully loses and we don't have to hear from him again. Or maybe he'll start to build up some sort of fan base. I do think the tricky situation here is we've seen superstars lose and then build other superstars. For example, when Conor McGregor lost to Nate Diaz, that's what put Nate Diaz into the stratosphere, and you invented an entirely new superstar. When Ben Askren lost to Flying Knee, Jorge Masvidal turned into a superstar. But you're not going to get that here. Ankalaev is not going to be a superstar. He just doesn't have the personality. He doesn't have the cage presence. He's not going to be a superstar, so you don't get the changing of the guard there. Running a rematch will definitely cause some problems. To your point, if we free up some budget, figure out how to build up this next generation of fighters, make them something, I think they can salvage. But I do ultimately think you had two good points in it. Look at you. What was that terrible take you had earlier? But the Fedor thing. But you did have two good points.
I can tell you're a casual. Fedor. Very interesting. It's Fedor. Go ahead. I'm an American. Go ahead.
I'm pronouncing the letters appropriately. But where I do think you're right is you start shuffling weight classes, you don't necessarily need a superstar per se, but you can have a narrative and you can sell the idea of, a superstar. You can sell questions and answers instead of a specific person. And that's probably the route they're going to have to go the next year or two while the Dustin Poirier's right off into the sunset and they're trying to build up the next generation.
This is where the total flop of the PFL/Bellator situation comes into play. Snatch up these guys that have some experience, have a little bit of name value, and then give each weight class a shot in the arm. You've got look, Yaroslav Amosov is out there. He'd be a great addition to the 170-pound division. Fantastic addition. Him. I'd love to watch him fight Rachmanov. I'd like to see him fight Kamaru Usman. I'd like to see him fight, Sean Brady. Him and Sean Brady be a fucking great fight. Good grapplers, good wrestlers, and just good on the feet, both of them. I mean, that'd be a fantastic fight. You've got guys like him. You've got guys. I mean, I wouldn't mind seeing, certain guys coming. Obviously, Johnny, and we are all talking about Johnny Eblin, Matt Patchy Mix, and all the other fighters, but there's guys out there that I think that I'm not saying they're going to end up coming in the UFC and being stars, but I'm saying what they do is if I can take someone like a Patricio Pitbull, former champion, 38 years old, but he's still got something in him. I think the Yair fight is the worst fight they could have given him.
Yeah, two old guys.
A lot of kicks. We saw Sergio Pettis was able to beat Patricio when he went down to 135 because of the speed. And Yair is a fast fighter. So those are the things that concern me. And he kicks a lot, and Pettis kicked a lot. And so that's what caused problems for him. So that concerns me a little bit. I would have liked to have seen him fight like a Dan Ige or a Volkanovski or some, or a Jose Aldo or something along those lines. Maybe we'll get that one of those fights eventually down the line. But there's fighters in the PFL/Bellator that I would have really loved to see come over. AJ McKee, obviously Usman Nurmagomedov is going to probably eventually make his way over. There's other fight. Alexander Shabley in the lightweight division, I think would have a really good chance of making that run and really making it exciting. He's mainly a stand-up fighter with good anti-wrestling. Those are the kind of guys that you want to bring over. So, I think the possibility of having those fighters come in and kind of basically challenge the UFC fighters to be like, hey man, I'm here. This is my turf. And you get a rise out of those fighters that have gotten comfortable being in the UFC. It's happened. It happened when Strikeforce happened. We got a lot of great fights out of it and a couple good champions out of it from Strikeforce, but it was definitely one of the best moments in the sport of watching the two companies merge. If you can get a couple of those fighters over, it really will put a shot in the arm, and those fighters will start talking trash. Like you said, it'll create controversy. Oh, like very much like how the MVP and Kevin Hall thing worked out. Oh, I'm not going to let that's the B-level show. And then he lost. Okay, now it gave MVP a little bit of clout. Okay, and that's kind of what everybody wants to see. We want to see those things. What happens if all the top fighters were in one organization? That's not going to happen. But I think that there's fights to be had there that if we could get them, it'd be amazing.
Yeah, they may have to do some investing on outsiders and make some adjustments here. It will be interesting to see what they do. I think the best bet right now, as we mentioned, separate Ankalaev and Pereira, move some weight classes around, create some narratives, and see where we go. Let us know your thoughts on the next UFC superstar below. And also, let me know if you think Fedor Emelianenko is one of the biggest superstars in MMA.
Once he said Fedor, you guys should have just tuned him out.
Wild take. Aren't you known for not pronouncing names correctly? Isn't that your thing too?
What the fuck is a Fedor? Is that something you wear on your feet?
It's a sloppy Russian who barely made it through Kevin Randleman.
Wow.
Oh, wow. When he got body slammed, actually suplexed by Kevin Randleman, that actually is the most impressive. The fact that he didn't break his neck and die right then and there and then recovered to win that fight was crazy. That wasn't crazy. Yeah.
Fucking animal.
It was nuts.
Not to mention, he was fucking everybody up. There was fucking juice to the gills.
I think Fedor is great. I'm not saying he sucks. I just don't think he's the superstar that you think he is.
Well, also two different eras. Had that been in the social media era?
It was during the Chuck Liddell era.
What?
He was fighting during the Chuck Liddell era, and everybody knew who Chuck was. Nobody knew who Fedor was.
Chuck had a tattoo on his fucking head and a mohawk.
Yeah.
You can't ever get rid of that. You can't ever get rid of that. Like Tito Ortiz with the dyed blonde hair. You can't ever get rid of it now. You're stuck with it. That's who you are. Your moment of star power was during that time when you had a mohawk and a tattoo on your head and dyed hair. You can't get rid of it. I think Figgy is going to be walking around with that red stripe in his hair the rest of his life.
Forever. Yeah.
Otherwise, people are like, okay, I don't remember. I don't know. Oh, yeah, it is what it is. Look, Fedor, he just had a belly. And then when he wears a shirt and a jacket in Russia, people don't recognize him. So, look, the guy's a star. Everywhere I've been with him in big events, he is huge. Even when we're just out having dinner, people are always not bothering, but, ask him. You just don't know, man.
On what continent were these dinners?
Mainly the UK and the US and Japan. Huge. Just the three biggest countries, in terms of, political power, just the three biggest countries. But whatever. And obviously I don't want to say anything about Russia because he's already, huge in Russia.
Sure.
But whatever. Just the four biggest countries in the world is star power. But I get what you're saying. No one's ever heard of him because his name, to you, I think you must be getting Fedor and Fedor mixed up. Maybe you forgot. Anyways,
I'm thinking of his younger brother, Alex.
Yeah. Alex was a little bit of a different bird.
Oh, but I'm a casual. Bird. I know his freaking brother.
Just tattooed to the gill.
Yeah, he's like the Grim Reaper.
Obviously part of the mafia. And just a different breed, man. I don't know if you guys remember. I believe he was the one that had the huge Grim Reaper tattoos all on his
whole back.
Body.
Yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, and you can imagine that guy showing up, knocking on your door, and hey, Putin wants to see you.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
No,
Yeah, no, thank
I'm
you.
good, bro. I'm good. That was not a request. Come, brother.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad take episode without some random tangent about a completely
Yep.
different topic. But thanks for the watch. Let us know below what you want us to talk about next and your thoughts on the UFC superstar problem.